Most fans see Hunter x Hunter chapter 411 as an exposition chapter, a chapter where Kurapika finally explains the rules of the succession contest. At first glance, that seems true, but what if that's only part of the story? When you look closely at what Kurapika actually says, an interesting pattern begins to appear. Not every statement carries the same level of certainty. Some are established facts, others are deductions based on the evidence available to him. And that distinction changes everything. Because if Kurapika mixes facts with deductions, then chapter 411 isn't just explaining the succession contest. It's shaping how everyone in that room understands it. In other words, the real weapon in chapter 411 may not be Nen, it may be information. In this video, we'll examine Kurapika's major statements one by one. We'll separate confirmed canon from deduction. We'll evaluate the evidence behind each claim. And by the end, we'll answer one question. Did Kurapika simply explain the succession contest? Or did he begin an information war? Before we analyze Kurapika's statements, we need to establish one thing. What actually happens in chapter 411? Let's focus only on what the manga explicitly shows. No theories, no assumptions, only confirmed events. Kurapika explains that the succession contest is more than a political struggle. It is a Nen ritual, a ritual designed to determine the next king under rules that were already set in motion. He also explains the role of the guardian spirit beasts. These beasts are not ordinary Nen abilities. They are products of the ritual itself, and they act according to the ritual's rules, not the prince's intentions. As the discussion continues, Kurapika presents several observations about how the ritual may work. Some are based on established facts, others are conclusions drawn from the evidence available to him. The chapter never tells us that every statement carries the same level of certainty. Some are presented as facts, others are presented as interpretations. And that distinction is crucial, because from this point forward, our question is no longer, what did Kurapika say? Instead, the real question becomes, which of his statements are confirmed, and which are deductions? That's the question we'll examine next. Now let's examine Kurapika's first major statement. The succession contest is a giant Nen ritual. Unlike some of his later conclusions, this statement stands on solid ground. By chapter 411, multiple pieces of evidence already support this interpretation. The ceremony that initiated the succession contest, the guardian spirit beasts that appeared afterward, and the rules governing how those beasts operate. Together, they point toward the same conclusion. This is not simply a battle between princes. It is a Nen ritual, created long before the contest itself began. Nothing in chapter 411 contradicts that idea. In fact, Kurapika's explanation brings together clues that the manga has been building for many chapters. So for this statement, there is little room for debate. Based on the available evidence, we can classify it as confirmed canon. But that's also where things begin to change, because the statements that follow are not supported in exactly the same way. Now let's move to the next statement. The ritual may have a time limit. Notice the wording. This is not presented as an established fact. It is a conclusion based on the evidence Kurapika has gathered so far. And that distinction matters. At this point in the story, the manga has never explicitly confirmed that the succession contest must end within a fixed period. Instead, Kurapika observes patterns. He compares the behavior of the guardian spirit beasts, the progress of the ritual, and the events unfolding aboard the black whale. From those observations, he proposes that the ritual may operate under a limited time frame. It's a reasonable deduction, one supported by multiple clues, but it remains a deduction. The manga has not yet confirmed it as fact. So where does that leave us? Not in the realm of speculation, but not in the realm of confirmed canon either. For now, the strongest classification is simple, plausible, supported by evidence but still awaiting confirmation. Finally, let's examine Kurapika's most controversial statement. Prince Wobble may no longer qualify for the succession contest. This is where many readers become divided. Some accept the statement at face value. Others believe Kurapika is deliberately misleading his audience. But the manga gives us no definitive answer. What we do know is that Kurapika chooses this exact moment to reveal his reasoning. Not earlier, not later. He presents his conclusion while multiple factions are listening. That timing is difficult to ignore. Whether his conclusion is ultimately correct is almost secondary. The important question is this: what happens after those words are spoken? Every listener is forced to reconsider the state of the succession contest. Allies, enemies, and neutral observers alike. Information begins to spread. Assumptions begin to change. Decisions begin to change. At this point, Kurapika may not be changing the rules of the game, but he is undeniably changing how every player understands them. So how should we classify this statement? There is evidence supporting Kurapika's reasoning, but the manga has not confirmed his conclusion. For now, the most accurate classification remains plausible, and whether it is true or not, its impact on the battlefield is already real. So what actually changed in Chapter 411? Not the rules of the succession contest, the information surrounding it. The moment Kurapika shared his conclusions, the battlefield shifted. Every faction now had to reassess what they believed. If Wobble could truly lose eligibility, then every strategy built around that assumption suddenly became uncertain. Even if Kurapika's conclusion is never proven correct, the effect of sharing it is immediate. Information spreads, people react, new possibilities emerge. This is why Sarah Hell's response is so important. She doesn't simply hear new information, she begins to process what that information could mean, and she isn't the only one. Once an idea enters the battlefield, every listener becomes part of the equation. Some will accept it, some will question it, others will exploit it. That is exactly what makes information so powerful in the succession contest. The battle is no longer fought only with Nen, it is also fought through knowledge, through uncertainty, and through the way people respond to both. So, what is the real significance of Chapter 411? It isn't that Kurapika finally revealed the truth, and it isn't that he intentionally deceived everyone either. The chapter shows something far more important. Kurapika presents confirmed facts alongside carefully reasoned deductions. Some of those deductions may eventually prove correct. Others may not. But before any of them can be verified, they begin to influence the people who hear them. That is the turning point. The battlefield changes not because the rules have changed, but because the player's understanding of those rules has changed. In other words, Chapter 411 is not simply about explaining the succession contest. It is about reshaping it through information. That is why our conclusion is this. Kurapika didn't merely reveal the truth. He started an information war. And until the manga provides new evidence, that remains the interpretation best supported by what we know today.